Barring any last-minute change, Justice Kudirat Kekere-Ekun assumed duty on the 22nd of August 2024 as Chief Justice of Nigeria in acting capacity, though, depending on confirmation by the Nigerian Senate following a nomination last week by the National Judicial Council. Justice Kudirat Kekere-Ekun is the second most senior justice in the bench of the Supreme Court, and going by principles and policies, she is expected to take over from Justice Olukayode, who bows out of office upon attaining the compulsory retirement age of 70 years. On Viewpoint today, where we discover perspective and embrace dialogue, we've got our own political analyst Odiawa in the studio to discuss this even more. Odiawa, welcome to Viewpoint today. I'm very well. Join us in the next phase of the show. Welcome back. Odiawa, let's talk about so far, so good. It's a new regime for our country in the judiciary arm of government. But let's talk about the regime of Justice Olukayode. How would you rate his regime when he was there?
On a scale of 10 or 1 to 100?
1 to 100.
1 to 100. Well, I would say with the characteristics features which was plaguing the Nigerian judiciary system, if we look at it, it was in an all-time low, let me put it that way.
Whoa.
Why? Because coming from the, abuse of interim injunction, arbitrary appointment of judicial practitioners, in the learned profession, and a whole lot of nepotism and favoritism, particularly also pending issues in the court, and the hope for the common man to actually even seek justice where he should get it from. He has to end up resorting to jungle justice. Why? Because the court is going to delay issues. Why? Because the judiciary now has become an investment sector, frankly speaking, we put it that way. Because when we look at it, elections are more now in the courts. So on a scale of 1 to 100, I'm not saying anybody is perfect, because in my own acting capacity, if I should go through the process, I might not know what must have been involved. So we should look at it on a scale of 1 to 100, I'll say he tried. Let me rate him probably 75%. Are
you sure, 75%? But there have been reports of far-reaching challenges. The reputation of our judiciary arm has been in question for many years now. So you have somebody new coming on board, Justice Kekere-Ekun coming on board, and she's been there for a long time, 66 years of age. Do you think she will make some change, given her track record? Do you think she will make some moves that will impact on the view of the people with regards to judiciary arm of government?
Well, looking at it this way, she has a track record of being impeccable. But the question now is, there have been this issue of questionable character in people who are meant to have impeccable character. Now, we have the law logo, which is the Azizis, which has this liberal logo and the sword, means you come over for equity, for justice. But in recent times, like I began by saying earlier on, it's an investment platform where people go and money talks. So the political class now have actually influenced decisions. Now the new head now, which is on ground, Justice Kekere-Ekun. Now I would liken her on a comical note to say Kekere-Ekun is a small lion. So if she can roar loud enough as the head now of the judiciary, happening to be the lion being the head or in charge of the jungle, and that roaring can actually make people shiver or quiver and stand on their feet in the judicial sector and avoid or boycott or stay away or abstain from all sorts of anomalies like debasements and corruptions and, all sorts of, nepotism, whereby a situation, a family turns into a cabal and institutionalize their nephews or nieces to be in certain sectors, be it in criminal law, oil and gas law, name it, just to cover up their tracks in case there are any heinous activities. Not necessarily because of the profession to begin to sound loud. Okay, my son is a doctor. I beg your pardon. My son is a lawyer. My daughter is a lawyer. But they now begin to make sure they secure from the stage of maybe the state level to the Court of Appeal level to the High Court level, whereby they have to secure the bench. And eventually, when they reach that certain age, they make sure that they secure them on the bench, the High Courts.
Well, you've mentioned some points so far with regards to the fact that there's been accusations with regards to favoritism, nepotism in the system when Justice Olukayode was there. And given the woman who has just gotten there, Justice Kekere-Ekun, like you mentioned already, there are gaps to be filled. Let's talk about the gaps to be filled. It feels that there is no discipline. We don't get people on board based on accountability. What gaps do you think that were there during Justice Olukayode this time, and that you believe that Justice Kekere-Ekun, who she's been in the room for a while, she knows these gaps. How do you think she can also fill these gaps that you're going to identify now? Okay,
let me use abuse of interim injunction, for instance.
Okay.
A court order is placed on ground, and when this court order is placed, say, okay, you mustn't travel out. Peradventure, you have to travel out, so documentation must be in place, so escorts must be in place. But we here in our own part of the world, we practically even flaunt it. Why? Because money talks, like I began by saying. Assuming, for instance, on a comparative analysis now, let me use the US now, where an attorney is being paid by the hour. Imagine being paid I'm using, for instance, now $30 per hour, and then you pack like 30 lawyers. 30 lawyers who have to secure a case for instance, probably maybe 7 hours. You've made absolutely $270 on the head of each lawyer. So multiply all that. That's why I say in our own part of the world, we tend to abuse all these things, take advantage of some things at the end of the day. So if she can like clamp her foot down, making sure that there's a total revamp and total overhaul, setting policies in place to make sure that even the judicial sector, irrespective of who is who, or some people classify or quantify themselves as the untouchables, you know that yes, they can actually touch you or harm you. And bourgeoisie, the political elites, are also an influential factor. Why? Because those who are even meant to uphold the law now become the charge and bill, let me put it that way. Because in this, there's hierarchy. The middle class, the low class, and the high class. Now, if you come to the legal profession, there are some people who are not able to even raise their head high because of the profession. Why? Because they've been bought over. And it's a case of you don't shut your trap jaw, you're going to end up on the floor. Why? Because they've been bought over. And when they buy them over with those funds, they can't talk. That impeccable character they ought to uphold, they become to have this questionable character. And those flaws which are there, they tend to like hide them. And when the garment is stained, it's a case of the citizens suffering in the long run. Definitely,
definitely. Now let's also speak about favoritism and nepotism. We've seen that appointment of judges so far has been said to be one that has been done on that particular note, where somebody who scored 0 in the interview is being given a particular is being upgraded to be a judge. Let's talk about that even more. That so she has a lot of work to do. We know that already. That there are gaps already there. Let's talk about the fact that some judges have been appointed out of favoritism, and what has to be done to prevent that.
Okay. When it comes to favoritism now, I mentioned something like, let me use the oil and gas sector.
Okay.
Or if I may go broad, the men who built America. If you're mentioning names like JP Morgan, you're talking about the finance sector. If you're talking about Vanderbilt, you're talking about the transportation sector. If you're now talking like John Doe Rockefeller, you're talking about oil and gas. Now, when now talk about law, there's a family which you will now mention and say, okay, yes, we have people to extract from that place. Now, when it comes to Nigeria now, let's not shy away from the fact. We down south, southwest, we are the ones dominant when it comes to law. Why? Because we need to fill in our people. You go to the north, people there are holding key positions, particularly from the north. When it comes to the southeast, it now comes to business-oriented or business-minded people. So when it comes to the law, they tend to churn out, based on the region now, to secure or assert dominance in that particular field. Now, that's where this nepotism now comes in. Now, for instance, now a duke or a duchess now, who happens to be a son or a daughter from different families, will have to come together to secure that authority and make sure that lineage continues. If there's a breakage there, it becomes a problem. Now, you now have a situation whereby a man who is a high-ranking judicial officer and a high-ranking minister, probably, now has a daughter who is a lawyer, now has to marry this judicial officer's son. Why? Because she has to secure the bench. Now, this is nepotism, and she is not even qualified. She must have gotten a pass. And upon getting a pass now, it's definitely you can't make it. That's why you end up having a 0. But because of the influence of a bourgeoisie here, a political elite, or an elite in the society, or a socialist, that is where this whole corruption and debasement continues to set in the judiciary. And once you're bought over with, we're talking tens of millions here, from above 50 to 60, 70. And once you see that mouth-watering figure, you can't say anything. That's where the nepotism now sets in.
Sure. Now, Justice Kekere-Ekun, who has just been brought in by the president, most likely. Let's talk about the idea that when should we rate her that she's done well? If you were to work in the company, for instance, and say 6 months probation to know if you are fit to continue to work there, should we rate her by a 6 months performance? And what are the indices to say, okay, she has done well so far, so good by that time?
Well, the indices there are when, of course, we have the media to serve as another check and balance for the judiciary, where they blow the whistle, particularly when someone has erred. Now, a situation whereby she, on her own part, I mentioned likening her to the head and the lion, who happens to be the head of the jungle. A situation whereby a senior ranking judicial officer is found in some corrupt practices, or any lawyer that be who is affiliated to a senior judicial officer or related to, and she can't even roar or even say anything, that is when you will now begin to have some kind of questionable character. So if we now see a situation whereby she's able to stamp her foot down and take no nonsense and even walk up to any untouchable, because looking at it, judging from her background, in the 90s, from 1996 to 1999, she was in charge of the anti-robbery squad in Lagos. So coming from this rugged law background, then going over to the Court of Appeal, then stepping up to the High Court, the Apex Court, we can see she has a dogged background. So irrespective of whoever the person is, she shouldn't be scared of the person. That's the way I see it. So if she can walk up to people within the time frame which you have just stipulated now, within 6 months, or probably more than that, like now, if you're a chief executive, they say within the space of first 100 days. So if she can make some landmarks and statements known, stamping her foot down, I think she has gotten, I will rate her more than what I rated the previous head.
All right, but you rated him 75. That's still an A, isn't it?
That's still an A. I began by saying nobody's perfect.
Okay, now, one of the ways of knowing if the Chief Justice of a country is doing well is how the person handles election. And let's talk about election now. We've seen that it's not been handled as best as it should have. So we're talking about favoritism as a problem, talking about nepotism. Let's talk about election now. Tell us about Babalakin Commission and the UI panel recommendation.
Well, both panels, Babalaki and UIAS, they actually state that the elections should actually go the way of the people. Now, it is not what actually plays out at the end of the day. Elections normally is taking place in a democratic setting, and democracy states 3 things defining one word: people. For the people, by the people, and the list goes on with the people. So a situation whereby the people cannot even dictate the tune, but the political class who are contesting for this election are actually dictating the tune. They are totally going against this panel of Babalaki and Justice Wires. There's a conflict there. So they now end up in court. A situation whereby ending up in court, the common man cannot even secure justice over petty little cases. He ends up receiving jungle justice. Why? Because over a case of Maggie. Now, not to digress, it's a case of when a poor man steals, they say he stole, he's theft, not thief, if I'm using local parlance. But when a rich man steals, he's accused of maybe maladministration or money laundering. The thieving qualification is kind of, polished when it comes to the rich man's side. Now, when a political official, in terms of not just elections alone, the money he even secures in prolonging the election after being sworn in, I think there should be changes also likewise. If there's an incumbent president or governor, I think he should still be in office while that other person who is actually complaining should finish his case within a certain or stipulated time frame. And it shouldn't extend beyond that time frame, because when it extends beyond that time frame, I mean, there are other stockpiling cases piling up.
Definitely.
So once it begins to waste time like that, the court has actually become an electoral body or an affiliate platform of the electoral umpire, which is INEC. I believe that on the part of INEC, there should actually be a court that should be set up to actually settle differences between competitors within the elections, which they call the tribunal. So it therefore means that the tribunal doesn't even have enough punch to even address electoral issues. But I think they should be granted more power to make sure that they end the election process or litigations there instead of going over to the courts, which is to even help even the common man. Now, if we look at it, look at the military now. The military has its own court. You will never hear a military case going over to the appeal court or going over to the Supreme Court. It's settled within the military tribunal. The same case or same thing should replicate in INEC. So a situation whereby the political class have now advanced to a technocratic level whereby they can't exchange fists or engage in fisticuff, or maybe probably, as they used to do back then in the 60s, 70s, exchange bullets, and you find someone gruesomely murdered. They end up in the courts, and funds are being wasted. And you're wasting funds in courts, and people are hungry. Where did you get the money from? When you're done wasting that money on the court cases for election tribunal or election cases, why? Because you have to secure a seat to embezzle what you've lost in the election. It doesn't make rational sense, because at the end of the day, the court will still summon you, and when the court summons you, because that politician has also settled that judge not to speak against him but speak for him in his favor, it's not a case, where does he get the money? Remember, I settled you so time. So it's a case of scratch my back, I scratch your back. So he cannot even talk, the judge cannot even talk. So no more impeccable character, it's not a questionable character.
Incredible recommendations there by Babalaki Commission and Y panel recommendation, and you've spoken about that even in great detail. Now, this is the last part of the show for me. I'm going to have you look to the camera and just imagine you are addressing Justice Kekere-Ekun. I guess the first thing you will say to her is congratulations. Two things you want to say to her as she steps into her role fully.
Justice Kekere-Ekun, I want to say a big congratulations. So it's with utmost pleasure that we envisage that you can live up to the demands of, number one, the common man, which actually the judiciary should actually represent, and erase any form of credibility or iota of doubt within the minds of Nigerians, and that should be addressed. Everyone should be treated equally if we have to find equity in the judicial arm of government. I think that should be expressly clear.
Everyone should be treated equally. Whether the new CJN will consider the agenda set for her is a decision for her alone to make. However, it will be in the interest and joy of all to have a judiciary that serves justice judiciously and justifiably at the end of a tenure in year 2028. It's been Viewpoint, where we discover perspective and embrace dialogue. Do have to follow us on all our social media platforms, on Facebook, on Instagram, on LinkedIn, on TikTok, to get updates every time we post a video like this. Thank you, Odell, for coming on the show.
You're welcome.
See you at the next one.